Welcome to History Uncharted, where we dive into the hidden depths of the past. They didn't call it lunch. Not really. In medieval Europe, what we think of as lunch was a strange, shifting concept, one tied to fasting, farming, social class, and even sin. For some, it was the biggest meal of the day. For others, forbidden entirely. But lunch, whatever you called it, was never just food. It was a reflection of your place in the world. What you ate, when you ate, and who, if anyone, served it to you. In this episode, we'll walk through the muddy lanes of a village. We'll sit by the hearth with peasants and monks. We'll peer into kitchens of both royalty and beggars, and discover what medieval lunch says about hunger, health, and heaven. So sit down at the long wooden table, tear a hunk of brown bread, and ask yourself, what did it mean to eat in the Middle Ages? Let's begin where most medieval people lived, at the very bottom, the village, the field. For peasants, lunch wasn't a luxury, it was a pause. A short break from relentless labor, from mud and plow, to gather what little they had. Their midday meal was called dinner, the largest meal of the day, eaten when the sun was highest and the body most tired. It was often eaten communally, seated around a shared table, or simply a flat board resting on barrels. So, what was on the menu? Bread, always bread, coarse, dark, often gritty with bits of husk, and sometimes even sand from the millstones. This was the staple. Then came the pottage, a thick, vegetable-based stew made with cabbage, onions, leeks, garlic, or turnips. If you were lucky, it had beans or lentils. If you were blessed, a bit of bacon fat. Protein was rare, cheese if the cow gave milk, eggs if the hens survived. Meat was scarce, and often preserved with salt, turning it tough and sour. And to drink, not water, that was often foul. Instead, small ale, a weak fermented drink safer than water. Brewed at home in great wooden tubs. This was not a meal of indulgence, it was fuel. Even in hunger, there was ritual. The head of the family gave thanks. The children waited their turn. Every crumb mattered. Now we move upward to the manor house, the noble court, the place where lunch was not just food, but display. For the wealthy, midday meals were grand occasions, opportunities to show off status, hospitality, and power. Unlike peasants, nobles didn't eat their biggest meal at noon by necessity. They did it by custom. Their dinner, around midday, was a drawn-out affair with multiple courses and spectacle. The bread was white, soft, and refined. The wine imported. The meats abundant. Venison, rabbit, boar, and birds like swan or peacock graced the table. sometimes dyed with spices or molded into fantastic shapes. Spices, imported from the East, were the ultimate symbol of wealth. Cinnamon, cloves, saffron, pepper, these were worth more than gold, and they flavored everything, even meat and wine. Courses came in pairs. First, boiled meats, then roasts. After that, fruit and sweet pastries, preserved in honey and wine. Everything had its order, its rule, its place on the table. Food was separation, divided by flavor, texture, and class. Who ate at the high table, who stood, who served. Everything was structured to reinforce the social order. But not all was indulgence. Nobles still followed church rules, fasting on Fridays, avoiding meat in Lent, and eating fish as penitence. Even their feasts bowed at times to the divine. And so, lunch for the rich became theater, a stage where food was costume, and every bite a line in the script of power. In the cloisters and abbeys of medieval Europe, lunch wasn't about pleasure. It was about discipline. For monks and nuns, eating was a spiritual act, a form of devotion, a break only in the service of God. The rule of Saint Benedict, followed in monasteries across Europe, instructed that meals be taken in silence. No laughter, no idle chatter, just scripture and spoonfuls. Their midday meal, the main meal of the day, often came after hours of prayer, work in the fields, or scriptural study. It was simple, modest, regulated, and highly symbolic. Pottage again, always pottage. Bread, vegetables, and cheese. Fish instead of meat, especially on Fridays or during Lent. Sometimes diluted wine, but never indulgence. In wealthier monasteries, food could be surprisingly abundant. Fruits, nuts, eggs, fresh river fish, but always under the watchful eye of spiritual restraint. Meals were eaten quickly, with no second helpings. Each portion was measured. One ladle, one slice, one cup. Hunger wasn't a flaw, it was part of the discipline. And when the bell tolled, they rose, bowed their heads, and returned to silence, leaving only the scent of cabbage and candle wax behind. Not everyone ate at home. In medieval towns, lunch could mean bread from a street vendor, a hunk of cheese from the market, or a quick bite between a mason's work shifts. For tradesmen and apprentices, lunch was fast, eaten with dirty hands, sitting on barrels or stoops. It was about calories, not comfort. And then there were the taverns. If you had a few coins, you could sit at a long wooden bench, order ale, maybe meat stew, or a slab of fish, and rest. Taverns were loud, lively, sometimes dangerous. A place to eat, argue, flirt, and overhear news. Travelers on the road relied on inns, monasteries, or sheer luck. Inns at times could be expensive. Monasteries, if you found one, might offer bread and water, or a bean stew. Otherwise, a crust of bread from a sympathetic farmer, or a turnip stolen from a field. And sometimes, nothing at all, just a prayer. And for the truly poor, the homeless, the beggars, the lepers, food came from charity or alms. A monk at a gate, handing out bowls to beggars. Leftovers from noble kitchens. A butcher offering scraps from his shop. Or a piece of cheese given through a barred window of a home. And now, some fun facts. Some nobles paid monks for fasting loopholes or to avoid fasting. Monks sometimes feasted under the guise of light meals and had a nice hearty lunch. Certain foods were seen as more moral than others. Fish was purity. Cheese was indulgence. Wine was sacred, and spices were suspicious. Outside the cloister, food had other meanings. Garlic to ward off spirits. Onions for blood strength. Bread crusts to cure toothaches. Beans made you dream of the dead. And certain broths were brewed to protect from curses or cast them. With that, we end today's video. Hope you enjoyed it, and the next time you eat a sandwich or order from a food delivery app, do give a thought to what people ate 700 years ago. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe.